Lions go from 4.5-point favorites to 6.5-point favorites. What does that mean?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's good, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It is another installment of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Friday edition, September the 12th into Saturday, September 13th. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody, and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to our everydayers who are out there that either watch the podcast on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel or check us out, again, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate all of you. The program today is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, we got Lions and Bears coming up on Sunday at Ford Field. Huge game for both teams. Both teams coming in 0-1. If you missed yesterday's show and Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, touchdown Bears, we had Lauren on doing a little Thursday crossover, of course, and had a good preview. Got a good preview of what to expect for Sunday. Lauren does a great job on the Bears pod. And look, Ben Johnson coming in. We're going to talk about that momentarily, but the Bears are better. And if they get some of their defensive players back, Jalen Johnson, Edmonds, the linebacker, they're going to be at more full bore, I guess, than they were for their opener Monday night when they lost to the Vikings. But with that being said, a lot of this game is going to hinge on how well Caleb Williams plays and how well really the Lions get to Caleb Williams. We'll talk about that. We got to get into the Taylor Decker shoulder injury. Ben Johnson homecoming. We have a call of the day. If you want to be our call of the day, it is simple. Just go to speakpipe.com/Derry, D-E-R-Y podcast page, and leave us a voicemail, and we will choose a call of the day and play them throughout the week. We've got one today, and I'm going to hear from somebody that lives in Bears country. So that is pretty exciting. All right. But I got to start with this. And I got a couple of text messages from some friends, including everydayer and a big Locked On Lions fan, Joe Allen, who hit me up today about the Vegas lines. And I go on FanDuel, of course, FanDuel, one of our sponsors here on Locked On Lions. And my goodness, when Lions Bears opened up, at the sports books and on FanDuel and everywhere else in Vegas, the Lions were 4.5-point favorites for Sunday's showdown against Chicago. Right now, as I record here on a beautiful Friday morning, the Lions are 6.5-point favorites. The line has moved 2 points. Couple of things that I think in terms of the betting markets, and we don't spend a ton of time on this podcast talking about gambling. I think I try to mix some of it in. I know a lot of you are into it. We've got great partners with FanDuel and PrizePicks and others here on Locked On Lions. But I wanted to touch on this today because I've got two theories on this. Number one, I think the Lions looked so bad on Sunday in Green Bay, so bad. And the Bears probably should have beaten Minnesota Monday night. I mean, they blew a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. So Chicago looked better for 3 quarters. You could tell that there's going to be a Ben Johnson effect here. They're not going to be the same old Bears. At least we don't think, although I do joke when they lose because I do enjoy when they lose. But I think Vegas looked at it very early on and said, all right, Lions shaky in Green Bay, Bears looking better. We know they're going to be better. And the Ben Johnson revenge, the Ben Johnson coming home, we're going to set the line at 4.5, right? Most times when the lines are set at 3, it's usually a pick 'em or a 1.5. It's usually the home team gets, a little bit of juice, but mostly if a home team is favored by 3, a lot of times it's the thought of it's pretty much an even game. You give the nod to the home team and you give them a couple of points. In this instance, to go from 4.5 to 6.5 throughout the week tells me something that I think people feel like the Lions are going to bounce back. The Sharps, whatever you want to say, out in Vegas. All right, that's number one. I do expect improvement. We've talked about this throughout the week. I think the Lions are going to play better. I don't think they could play any worse than they played the other day in Green Bay. The kicking game, kick return team looked lost. Punt coverage, bad. And everything. Defense. I mean, how many more times do we have to talk about the Green Bay game? I don't want to. You don't want me to. But with that being said, I think the Lions will play better this week. I think that was a reality, not reality check. I think that was a wake-up call in Green Bay. Now, the other reason why I think this spread moved like it has is, and I hate to say this, but Green Bay's really good. The Packers, Peter Bukowski's Packers, they're excellent. They are really, really good. And they showed it again last night, knocking off the Commanders and doing so in pretty much impressive blowout fashion. They were up 17 late. Commanders got a late touchdown to make it 27-18. But let me tell you something. If you watch last night's game, all right, they pressured Jaden Daniels all night. They got 4 sacks on him. Tucker Kraft, big night. Jordan Love, big night. Couple of touchdown passes. Again, time to throw. Jacobs rushes for 80 yards. The Packers in back-to-back weeks, and I know they're both home games, but knocking off Detroit and Washington and doing whatever they want for the first 2 weeks, laying the wood to the Lions and the Commanders, I think shows that I think the line moves to out of respect for Green Bay, saying, okay, spread goes from, and I'm not saying it moved 2 points overnight. It had been moving. It had gone from 4.5, went up to 5, but now it's 6.5. I think people realized, and I think Vegas realizes, that the Lions played last week, arguably right now through 2 weeks, and it's early, but arguably they played maybe the best team in the NFC. The Packers looked the part. So while we consider and go, oh man, the spread moved 2 points, this is great news for the Lions. And it is, I guess, because it shows that people are confident that they're going to win the football game. All right. And if you go by Vegas, you go by the experts, the sharps, whatever. All right, that's good. You never want to be that team that was a 4.5 point underdog and now is a 6.5 or 7 point underdog. You never want to be that team. Now, maybe there's some injuries with the Bears, and maybe these guys aren't coming back from the defense. The 3 starters that they didn't have the other day, the 2 big ones being Johnson and Edmonds. But I think it's a respect call on Green Bay and how good they've been so far. And maybe the Lions, who played poorly, and this is not to excuse how badly the Lions played in last Sunday, but Green Bay is legit. And I hate to say it. I don't like it. I hope Pete Bukowski's not even listening. All right, because he's going to be a bear to deal with. But in all seriousness, the Packers are really good, and you see the impact that Micah Parsons is having. You see the impact as they've kind of rebuilt their offensive line a little bit. And everybody, it's funny, everybody in the division has done some movement with their O-line. All right, I think the Lions can rush on the edge Sunday against the Bears tackles. I do. I think the Bears tackles are shaky. I think their center is shaky, although I think our center is shaky. But Green Bay's good. And you're watching how aggressive they're playing. You see how physical that defense is. I love watching Cooper play. Their middle linebacker is really, really something. And so I think that Vegas saw what they saw last night and said, wait a minute, maybe the Lions are better than we think. Maybe we move that line a little bit in their favor, based upon having to play Green Bay in week 1, because the Packers really, really are good. And Detroit's got their hands full this Sunday. This is not going to be a walk in the park. When the Bears were a joke the last few years under Matt Eberflus and having to play Justin Fields, who I always refer to on this show as Hall of Fields, even last year, all right, Lions were cruising on Thanksgiving Day over the Bears. And all of a sudden, they let Chicago back in the game. Yes, the Bears laughably butchered the clock management at the end, but they were driving to try to take the lead on Detroit. Last 2 years, those games at Ford Field were a lot closer than they should have been. The Lions have been better than the Bears for years. But the last 2 years at Ford Field, Chicago's come in and played pretty well. And a lot of those guys are still on this team. So I'm not going to take them lightly at all. One guy the Lions need is Taylor Decker. He has not practiced the last 2 days. We will discuss that coming up next as well. on a Friday edition of a Locked On Lions is, yes, we're getting you ready for Detroit and Chicago coming up this weekend. But first, the Locked On Lions for today is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Yes, we love Mazda. Bear with me, everybody. You know, sometimes you got a little issues here. We deal with it. All right. This update is brought to you by, our episode is brought to you by our friends at Mazda, and moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. All right. This week's moment to move the game forward, unfortunately, because the Lions were so bad last week, we got to talk about Isaac Tesla, because really the only big highlight, the only moving forward highlight that we had from last week was Tesla, and the catch that he made in the corner of the end zone the other day was absolutely unbelievable. All right. To find the game, you see how hard he works, and the catch that he made one-handed, kept his feet in, was absolutely unbelievable. All right. And that kept fans moving forward. They're into it, and they want to see more of number 18. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, like Isaac Tesla, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, it is a Friday edition of Locked On Lions, everybody. Getting ready for the weekend and the Sunday affair on Fox at 1 o'clock. Lions and Bears going to go at it at Ford Field, an opportunity for Detroit in their home opener to get a win, get to 1-1, and a big game for this football team on Sunday, because next week, Monday Night Football at Baltimore is going to be no walk in the park. You guys remember the last time the Lions went into Baltimore, the Ravens absolutely handed Detroit its lunch. It was not a good scene, as they say. And so these two teams will square off next Monday, but Lions and Bears coming up on Sunday at Ford Field. All right. Big news, at least this week, has been the injury to Taylor Decker. He has been bothered by a shoulder issue. He was interviewed on Thursday after practice and said it's just something he's working through right now. He thinks he'll be fine, and he thinks he's going to play on Sunday. John Morton was asked about Taylor Decker and says he believes that Decker, sore shoulder or not, will also be out there this weekend against Montez Sweat and that Bears front Sunday against Chicago. Dan Campbell, same type of thing. Everybody's saying the same thing. They think he's going to play. Now, when asked, Morton, the offensive coordinator, and by the way, please stop with John Morton's not going to get the job done and John Morton sucks. And it's been one game. All right. If John Morton through 6 weeks, if he's in over his head, if it's 8 weeks, let's give everybody some time here before we just already label him. And my buddy John Macaroon from Detroit Sports Podcast and Lions on SI, I like John a lot. John asked Dan Campbell the other day about if they should have, was there ever a thought given to just run the same offense that they had and have Jared Goff run it and not really have an offensive coordinator? I think that's kind of what John was getting at. And Dan was like, what are you talking about? Like, this Sunday, the Lions offense could be bad again. All right. Then Morton will get more heat, but one game does not define a coordinator, a coach, a player, anything. Did you watch Caleb Williams and that Bears offense after one series Monday night? Oh my gosh. Go on social media and see the Ben Johnson effect. The Bears are back. Oh my God. It was great. How many more touchdowns did they score the rest of that night? One late in the game. Everybody have a little patience before we say John Morton is the worst OC ever or John Morton is the best OC ever. Maybe after this week, the Lions score 50 and we say he's the next Ben Johnson. Let's let it play out for a little while. Can we talk about bad calls? Can we say there were things that didn't work? Can we say there wasn't enough pre-snap motion? Absolutely we can. But hold off on just killing this guy after one game. I didn't love the hire either. But let's just give it some time. Anyway, Morton, when asked Morton, when asked about who could take Taylor Decker's place if he cannot play on Sunday. And again, the team is hopeful that he will play. With Jamarco Jones being placed on IR for the rest of the year, Dan Skipper's got some knee issues, according to Justin Rogers. Morton was asked if Giovanni Manu would start at left tackle, who's never played a snap in the NFL yet. Quote, I would think so. You'd have to ask Dan that. Dan. Coyote Awashika, who has played some tackle in the NFL and has just been a solid backup, also could play, if needed, left tackle, according to Hank Fraley. That was in Pride of Detroit this week. Let me just say this, all right? You want to say Taylor Decker's not as good as he used to be. You want to say we need a new left tackle. Taylor Decker is a really good football player. He has been around. And if somehow, some way we get to Sunday morning and he's inactive, or turns out they announce for late today that he's not going to play or he's being scratched, that's a big loss. Again, he feels like he can play through this shoulder injury. He thinks he'll be out there. I'm recording this show on Friday morning, so there will be more news throughout the day on it. But let me tell you something. They need him. You might not like Taylor. Life without Taylor Decker is not going to be pretty. I'm telling you this. Giovanni Manu had his ups and downs during training camp. There were good moments during the preseason. There were some other moments that were not. But that's a drop-off again. We've talked about the Ragnow to Glasgow drop-off at center. The Decker to Manu drop-off would be a big one too. So I know there's plenty of people, Taylor Decker's not what he used to be, and he's our weak link on the O-line. Taylor Decker is a solid, solid player. And if he can't play this weekend, I'm just throwing it out there. He's good. They need him. They need everybody on the O-line to play better than heck. Panay Sewell didn't play all that well. He would tell you that last Sunday. So that's the latest as the hours are unfolding this morning as I'm recording here on Friday morning. All right, Ben Johnson coming back. We have not touched on this enough, and I want to mention something before we get to call of the day and all of that here on the show. We saw what the Bears could do with the scripted plays on Monday night against the Vikings. They got the football, or they kicked off. They stopped the Vikings on a 3-and-out. They got the ball, and they went down and scored a touchdown to start this season. And you saw the creativity. You saw Caleb Williams in a good rhythm early in that game that ended after the scripted plays for the most part. You saw the zip on the football, on that rollout pass, all of that. Ben Johnson coming back to Ford Field. I believe there will be at least a minimum, and this is just my opinion, a minimum, I have no inside information, of 2 plays that we are going to see Sunday that the Lions have got to be ready for. I don't know what those plays are, but I think there's going to be some hijinks. I think there's going to be some chicanery, some razzle-dazzle, some tricks, trickeration, whatever you want to say. Ben Johnson did not do a ton of overly creative and tricky things on Monday night because I think he is saving that for this week. He wants this game. Look, the Lions need this game and want this game too. But I really, truly believe that this is going to be a Ben Johnson. Not going to say the whole game's going to be tricky, but he's saving some stuff for Sunday. We're going to see something early in that game, and the Lions have just got to be ready for it. I don't know if it's a double reverse pass. I don't know if it's going to be a throwback to a left tackle that is reported eligible. And if you watched a Monday night, he had the backup tackles reporting eligible on numerous plays early in that game, mostly run plays and jumbo stuff. But the Lions have got to be ready for it. All right, when they see that a player is lined up as eligible and reporting as eligible, cover that guy. No matter if he's a 300-pound backup tackle, he might be getting the football. I think Ben Johnson wants to gimmick this thing up. He'll do whatever it takes to win this game Sunday. And if it's got to be tricky, I just think the Lions defense and Kelvin Shepard have got to be prepared for it, because I think that's a good possibility that's coming. You know, he wants this game. You know, he's heard all of the stuff about Dan Campbell and protege and prodigy, and he was an assistant here. He wants to show off. Now, the Bears are also 0-1. They do not want to drop to 0-2. He wants to win the game just to win it too. But this has been circled on his calendar. He wants to come back and do something big. And I think that is a distinct possibility that happens this Sunday, that Johnson empties the bag of tricks. And Lions just got to be prepared for it. No doubt about it. We got a call of the day coming up next. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by DoorDash. It is almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. All right, we got to break it down. It was not a great performance from the Lions last weekend against the Packers, obviously. But for the Lions, I would say Jack Campbell delivered in a pretty big way. Good football player. You saw he led the team in tackles last week. Made a couple of nice stuffs against the run, against Green Bay. Came through, no hesitation, no delay. Jack Campbell is a guy that is continuing to get better. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Jack Campbell might be on a nice streak. And just like Campbell delivered for the Lions, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. And the Locked On Lions also, we told you this, brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Yes, we love FanDuel. We told you earlier, Lions now on FanDuel. 6.5-point favorites on Sunday against the Bears. NFL season is here and underway, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff. And they got a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's awesome. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. I said before, Lions are now 6.5-point favorites. Want to put some money down on the game and on the Lions this weekend? Please do it at FanDuel, all right? It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So you're ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, we are here on a Friday edition of Locked On Lions. And as I said the other day yesterday with Lauren Cox, I like the Lions in this game about 28-23. I think Detroit's going to win. I think it's going to be around that number at 5. And I think Detroit's offense is going to bounce back. I think there's going to be some slippage a little bit defensively. I do think Ben Johnson's offense is not going to come in here and not score some points. So I see this as being kind of a 28-23 Lions win. They need to win no matter if it's by 5, by 1, by 500. Detroit needs to get this done, not want to head to Baltimore at 0-2. That's the last thing that this team wants to do. All right, it is time, folks, for our call of the day. If you want to be our call of the day, it is simple. You go to www.speakpipe.com. That is SPEAK pipe.com/dairy podcast page. Leave a voicemail, and we might play it on the show. Today, we head to the state of Illinois. Take a listen.
Hi, Matt. Paul Manellis from Lake Forest, Illinois, a.k.a. the Lake Forest Lion. Grew up in Detroit, graduated from high school in Saginaw, 50-year-plus dedicated Detroit Lions fan. And following this week's loss to the Packers, nothing soothed my pain more than listening to local Chicago sports radio on Tuesday morning, because Bears fans are consistently the most fair weather fans in all of sports, and this week is absolutely no exception. Because prior to that Monday night fourth quarter meltdown versus the Vikings, the predominant feeling here amongst the sports fans on the radio and my friends group was that this was the year the Bears were going to fulfill Chef Pole's promise and prophecy of bringing the Bears to the promised land, taking over the North and never relinquishing it. But following that loss almost immediately, the message is right back to Ben Johnson doesn't know what he's doing. hiring him was a huge mistake, and probably the only one dumber on this team than Ben is Caleb. These people are hilariously consistent with their lack of consistency, and based on what you're hearing, Ben Johnson's already in the hot seat, due mainly to their early lack of discipline, aka 15 penalties, and his inability to be a quarterback whisperer to Caleb Williams, who may run like a chain, but he throws like a girl. Sorry, go Lions.
Paul Manellis, thank you very much for your call today coming from Chicago. And yes, he gives a great perspective on what the talk is, whether it's on the Score in Chicago, ESPN 1000. They have two really good sports radio stations in Chicago. We have one. Detroit's a great sports town. Don't get me started on that topic. Anyway, the bottom line is this. They had 12 penalties, and Ben Johnson made a major gaffe the other night by not kicking the ball out of bounds or in trusting that Santos was going to kick the ball deep and out of the end zone, which was dumb. You just kick it out of bounds. Just kick it out of bounds, and the clock doesn't start, and they would have saved a timeout. Instead, didn't kick it deep enough. The Vikings up in the game were able to run the clock out, and Johnson made a big mistake and admitted to that. All right. But again, as I said about the fans getting on John Morton, it's one game. Ben Johnson should not be judged until after the season. Let's see what he can do. He's a first-year head coach. All right. I'm rooting against him. All right. I don't want him to win. I want him to lose. But I think we need to pump the brakes on he's not the guy. The instant reaction and the overreaction is just unbelievable. It is. Look, I'm guilty of it sometimes too. Right. But yeah, I mean, he and Caleb Williams need a full season together to decide to see what is there. At times Williams looks great, and other times he doesn't. So, all right, big game Sunday. We will be with you. I will have a show Sunday after the game. Don't forget our Locked On Lions squad show will be on live after the game. That's with Jake Rietma and Natalie Kerwin and Bradford Banta. They will be on live after the game, wherever you get your podcasts. I will be on, and we will have our show Sunday as well. Go Lions. We'll talk to you again on Sunday after the game.